Good morning. Coffee time. Good morning. Okay. What day is today? I don't know. Monday happened. Tuesday happened. Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining. So, at the beginning of my Facebook Lives in the description, you're going to see something about a theory. So very soon on one of my websites, all of my websites, I'm going to outline my theories of everything. So the reason I'm doing Facebook Lives, the reason that I'm offering free classes and making websites is to simply disseminate information that I think is valuable. Making myself available. Good morning, Lisa. So at the beginning of my Facebook Lives from now on, there'll be some sort of theory, relationship, so that I can start to tie everything in together, and that in the end of the year, it'll be this cohesive message of how everything connects and aligns. And so hopefully that's more helpful. Good morning, Catherine. Good morning, Lisa. I said Lisa. Good morning, Kimberly. So I fixed the lighting, better lighting, and I can see all the comments now. So 2 huge improvements to my Facebook Lives. So today we're talking a little bit about construct theory. And that's an exciting one. So I think construct theory is one that connects really elegantly to the ideas of the bubbles of perception, the social bubble of perception in a lot of ways, but also the perception of other. So that's a couple of the bubbles of perception. So the bubbles of perception fall or connect to this idea of construct theory. So the construct theory is the construct of our mind. Hi, Kimmy. Good morning, Shayna. So I use my coffee cup. It's a little full, but normally I use my coffee cup as my example for the ego. The illusionary sense of self, yada, 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 all that jazz is in my cup. So when I use my cup as that representation, that's what I'm doing. So my cup is my ego. It's my likes, my dislikes, all of the things of the machinations of my mind that are an enigma are all in this cup. Well, that's the construct. So anything that we're viewing outside of ourselves is simply being constructed in our mind. It's being assembled in our minds. So we're taking in sensory perception through our senses, and then they go from our senses and are assembled in our mind. And so that's the construct. So the construct starts to get really detailed. It starts to branch off in a lot of different ways. So there are a lot of things that are a part of this construct. So some people talk about the Matrix. You know, that I love the movie Matrix. When it first came out, I was making these connections immediately. Taking other people's inventory. I'm not sure what you mean, Jay. So when I'm talking about the construct theory are all of our beliefs, you know, all of our ideas, all of our likes or dislikes. It's all building this construct. And there are some people who aim to dissolve the illusionary sense of I, of self, to dissolve that cup, to get rid of it. And then on its own, that construct will just dissolve. So when the Matrix first came out, you had a lot of people, you know, red pill, blue pill, you know, we need to get out of the Matrix, get out of the Matrix, get out of the Matrix. You know, destroy the construct, bring the construct down. Well, I tuned into the second movies and the third movie, and I had this idea that, I'm not the anomaly. I don't need to get out of the matrix. I'm the architect of the matrix. I can design the matrix how I see fit. So I can construct the construct, which ties in beautifully to the law of attraction. We construct the construct. I'm the architect. I'm not the anomaly. I wasn't born sinful and broken and shamed. I was born enlightened and beautiful and ready and in this wonderful state of allowing. So one of the things I want to focus on in construct theory today is limiting beliefs. So I used to have a lot of limiting beliefs. I like to talk about myself normally. That's not an egotistical thing. It's just I would prefer to use myself as an example rather than talking about other people. That's rude. Unless they're here and give me permission, I don't want to talk about other people. So I'll just use myself as an example if that's okay. So this idea of the construct that we are creating, it's the life that we're creating. It's the ideas that we're creating. It's the beliefs that we're creating. We're creating them in our own mind and we're choosing. Sometimes that choice is a little bit unconscious and subject to other people's suggestions. And then the construct gets deeper and deeper and deeper and more branches and more branches and more branches. And then before you know it, information is very toxic. So this idea of the construct is what we're creating in our mind. And I'm focusing a little bit on limited beliefs this time. So I used to have a lot of limited beliefs. And one of these limited beliefs came up into my field of perception maybe 3 or 4 times yesterday. It was said this way, said this way, said this way. So guess what? I'm going to address that in the way that I do. So I used to have limiting beliefs. And there was this moment where I realized that that's a box. I'm not as free anytime I am limiting myself. I definitely am not going to align with somebody else limiting me. And I'm absolutely not going to limit myself. That's getting in my own way. That's holding myself down. So I don't prescribe to limits. The wavelength of the electromagnetic spectrum is infinite. It just goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. That's the nature of infinity. Difficult for us to wrap our minds around because our brains are fundamentally binary. The synaptic connections are either firing or they're not. So limiting beliefs. So one of the limiting beliefs that I used to hold was that I could not maintain a meditative state all day. I used to have that belief. I can't meditate all day. That would be weird. What do? I just go to a garden and just sit for 16 hours and meditate? Like that's, maybe some people find great joy in that, but I was like, that doesn't sound good. But at the same time, I didn't want to limit myself, and then somebody limited me. They didn't do it intentionally. Again, I told this story before, and they didn't really intend to limit me. It was just the way that they had said it and the way that I perceived it was a little bit different. So I perceived it as somebody saying that I cannot maintain a meditative state all day. That was the limiting belief that was being put on me. And it was aligning with my own limiting belief. And then before you know it, of course, that's what I'm going to create. That's going to be what I'm actualizing. So I'm right either way. If I say I can't or whether I say I can, either way, I'm correct. So this idea that I can't maintain a meditative state all day was a limiting belief. And then somebody else trying to project that limiting belief onto me, at that time I was still reacting to things. So I reacted to it. And I was like, no, I can, in fact, maintain a meditative state all day. I just don't know how. I'm going to figure this one out. And of course, that led me to mindfulness. Checking in, checking in, checking in. expanding the present moment. Hi, Prita. So I have my comments all fixed. Everything should be in real time now, or as close to it as Facebook is possible. So this limiting belief was that I couldn't maintain a meditative state. Hi, Christy. Yes, you woke up early. You caught me live. And I'm doing my lives a little bit later. I used to do them at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So. Hi, Roxana. I like your name, Roxana. It's exciting to say. Some words are just more exciting to say than others. Okay, so there's this limiting belief that I couldn't maintain a meditative state all day. And then I'm like, game on. So I started adopting these mindfulness practices. I started expanding the present moment with tricks of attention. And I started really sensing and connecting into my environment using what I call synthesis theory. And I'm not ready to talk about that yet. So that's coming soon. We have to get attachments and control dramas and stuff like that out of the way. Construct theory and attachments, they go hand in hand. Because we get attached to the construct that we've created, not realizing that we can just create a new one. We can just tell ourselves a new story, and at any moment we can change it. I can't. Ida. I hope that's close. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know. I can't hear you say it out loud. So this limiting belief, I busted that. So there was this one day where I literally just paid attention to every single breath I took. In one single day, I did this for an entire whatever period that I was awake. I maintained awareness of my breath. And of course, I've never had a more relaxed day in my life. That was one of the most relaxed days that I've ever had, because the entire day, I took my time to be consciously aware of my breath. So that was great. I felt great. But then I was like, that's, I got to do other stuff. I got to talk to people. I have to manage the restaurant, etc. I can't just constantly be aware of my breath. So as good as that practice is, and as much as I do it, and as much as it sets the pace for my day, and I love that breath awareness, I have found that checking in throughout the day is more advantageous than these meditative time blocks. But then when combined together, that's when the magic really starts to happen. We can really start to unearth our inner magic. So limiting beliefs. So I've come across a limiting belief that has been mentioned several times. And when it's mentioned several times, I see it several times, then I'm gonna touch on it. And this is going to get into a little bit of law of attraction. Everything I talk about is essentially underlining with the law of attraction, because it's the underlining law of our reality as we see it, as we feel it, as we create it. So the law of attraction, by default, everything I'm talking about is going to align with that. So there's this idea that I kept seeing, that marriage should be work, or that we're working on this and we're working on our relationship. So that's something that I heard a lot before. And I heard it so much from so many people, I just accepted that theory. Dr. Phil, yeah, he told me we got to work on marriage, and that it's hard work to have a relationship. Hard work. So I started to buy into that belief. And I started to buy into other beliefs that people were telling me as well. But this is just one that came to me. So I have two that I'm going to talk about that came up several times. So this isn't geared towards one person, because this came up in my experience, my awareness, several times. So somebody was mentioning that marriage should be work, and that we're working hard at it. Working every day, work, working at our marriage, working at our relationship, working on the relationship with our kids, work. I don't think that marriage should be work. And I'll explain why, in terms of the law of attraction. So we have this thing called connection. And connection is really easy. It's similarities, things that we have in common. Energetically, we can connect, we can vibe. We just align with some people really well. Hi, Marty. Hi, Tiara. I hope I said your name right. Good morning. So we have this idea of soulmates, and I describe soulmates like Abraham Hicks does, that everybody could potentially be a soulmate to everybody. It just has to do with how many and how deep your connections with people go, or things. You could be a soulmate to a volleyball if you're lost on an island. But the soulmate idea is just about making energetic connections. Hi, Jennifer. So we make connections really easily. So when two people meet, they're like, I practice Tai Chi. And then the other person's like, no way, I practice Tai Chi. Really? I enjoy meditation. No way, I enjoy meditation. That's cool. Let's talk about the things that we align with, because that feels good. Good morning. Hi, Heather. Mariana? I don't know. So should marriage be work? If marriage is starting to feel like work, if relationships are starting to feel like work, one thing is happening, and one thing only. There's only ever one thing happening, and one thing only. It's the transference of energy. It's the connection of energy. It's the transition of energy. Energy is a very generic word, so I'll just back that up a little bit. We don't have to use the generic, all-encompassing word of energy. We can just talk about, likes, dislikes. We're making connections. Physical preferences. You're going to make a connection with somebody who has a physical preference that you prefer. This is all a part of the construct, by the way. Physical preferences, we can see that changes, throughout time in a society. What people viewed as more sexually appealing changes and evolves. And so we know that that's something abstract. It's not something that is really connected to source. So we're talking about limited beliefs. So there is this limited belief that marriage should be work, that relationships should be work, that friendship should be work, and that we need to work hard at it. That's using force. It's trying to control. It's not going with, it's going against, because here's what's happening. We're not making an energetic connection. We're not making a match point. I call it match point if we don't want to use the word energy. If that's too kooky for you, we'll get a little bit more solid. We're making a match point. We're matching on this point. So when marriage starts to feel like work, when a relationship starts to feel like work, it's because we're just simply not matching anymore. As time goes, I stopped liking Tai Chi, for example. That's not true. I'm just saying, if that's it, or the other person, stops liking Tai Chi. Now we're not really matching. Their body style is changing, which is, my preference, which is a part of that construct, and we're not really matching on that. On an energetic level, on this feeling of deep connection to source, maybe we're not matching on that now anymore. Maybe I'm still going into my spiritual deep experience, and my significant other wants to go clubbing and wants to go to strip clubs. That's fine. Strip clubs are great. I have no opinion either way on those. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying when things just don't align anymore, they don't match up. Hi, Kate, Deborah, Sarah. It's good to see you guys. Thank you for tuning in. So now what we do is we work. We're going to work at it. And then we're going to force connection where none previously existed. And that leads to lying. That leads to being unauthentic, disauthentic with yourself, which then translates to being inauthentic with everything outside and around. Because now we're trying to force connections. And what I have found is more successful, and Shayna and I are working on this more and more, is that we're changing together. I'm changing as I go along. I'm transitioning. So what Shayna and I are working on more and more is transitioning together, being more clear, communicating more openly about what we expect from one another, about our beliefs. So Nicholas Alsop, I don't think I've ever said your last name out loud, so I apologize if I said it incorrectly, but I see that he joined, and I can use Nico as an example. You know, there's a lot of limiting beliefs around our martial art, Tai Chi. You know, there is this limiting belief that you can't do something in an untraditional way. Well, he does it both ways. He does it very traditional, and he does it very original, unique to his style and his, you know, vibe and his construct and his connection to source. You know, so somebody, you know, throws these limiting beliefs out there. No, with Tai Chi, you have to be this way. You know, you have to do it that way. You know, that's a limiting belief. And Nico just shattered that shit. He's just like, no. You know, I've done this traditional way for years and years and years and years and years. You know, what, a couple decades for you, or a decade plus? You know, you've done it that traditional way, and then now you're starting to branch. You know, you still have those roots, but now you have the creative fruits as well. Now, there's a lot of people that will say, what's he doing? You know, that's not traditional Yang style Tai Chi. It's very, you know, he shouldn't be doing that. Why the hell not? You know, he has his theories, he has his ideas, and he's supporting them. And he's evolving. And evolving is directly proportional to the adaptation to change. Adaptation to change is directly proportional to movement. So he's finding new ways to move, new ways to adapt, new ways to change. And that is the essence of Tai Chi. So that's just a shout out to what he's doing, because I see this in other people too. I see them taking limiting beliefs and just shattering it. So there's this limiting belief that relationships should be work, that Tai Chi should be work. No. Does my martial art benefit me now? Does it bring me joy now? It may be difficult, you know, in terms of you know, my body's development. You know, sometimes muscles growing is a little bit painful. So when we are talking about a relationship with somebody, anytime that we're feeling dissonance is because we're no longer making a connection that we used to, on whatever level, for whatever reason. Yeah, Nico's right. It's not applicable just to martial arts. It's applicable to every belief, because every belief is just a part of the illusionary construct. And that being the case, you can go cultivate your garden. You can go tend your garden, and you can make your garden beautiful. And that begins with unlimited beliefs, you know, a glass ceiling. You know, I can do anything I want to, and really knowing that that's true. That's absolutely true, because you create the reality based on the direction and intention of your mind and your thinking and your awareness. So we're creating our reality. We're creating our illusionary construct. My construct is infinite. It doesn't have limited beliefs. You can't tell me what I can and cannot do. I can do anything. I am the I am, and I really believe that. So this idea that relationships, you know, need to be work, that's not how I see things. When we start to work at it, now we're trying to force alignment, match points where for whatever reason, whatever has happened, cause and effect, they no longer connect. We're no longer making that match point. So one thing that we can do when we're not making match points is we can just be more aware of the match points that we do make. You know, that's something that Shayna taught me, is maybe we should appreciate what we do have instead of always noticing these disconnects. And that's a good way to look at it, and I recommend it that way as well. So you make those energetic match points with your partner, with your relationship. So how does one who's on a higher vibration deal with a partner who's operating on a lower vibration? So everything comes down to choice, Jennifer. So there's no right way. I can't tell you what to do or how to do it, and I can't really prescribe behavior. But I can tell you that the cause of the differences in vibration, so you're not on a higher vibration than your partner. We can't compare that. That's tending to their garden. That's comparing my garden to your garden. And I personally don't recommend that. So higher and lower vibration is always just relative to you. Are you vibrating higher than you were a moment ago? Where is your mind now? Where is your intention now? Where is your energy now? So that's always just relative to you. So I don't ever recommend comparing and contrasting to other people. However, if you're feeling that you're vibrating on a different level than somebody else, then very likely what you're trying to explain is that you're just not matching on certain things that are important. You know, spirituality, for example, that can be very important to a person. So if you're not making a match point on that level, that could be something very basic and can lead to a lot of different things. So maybe they're always angry while you're always happy. Maybe they're always pessimistic while you're always optimistic. So you're not making those energetic match points anymore. Bottom line, it's choice. Do you want to continue to romanticize that relationship or not? If not, then you just go do your thing. I would recommend communicating, being honest, having the intention of doing no harm, but also tending to your own garden and taking responsibility for your choices. However, if we decide that we want to try to, you know, continue with the relationship, I wouldn't view it as work. I wouldn't view it that way at all. But I would make myself an example. So the only thing that we can do is shine our light in the presence of others, is to work on ourselves in the presence of others. So if I ever want to make a match point with somebody, so let's say that Shayna isn't making a match point with me in terms of doing chores around the house. She wants me to do more chores. I don't want to do any chores. If she ever wants to influence me and really, really create the conditions for me to motivate myself, because she can't motivate me, she can just inspire me. She will just clean around me. She'll always make sure that she's cleaning around me, and she sees me cleaning, and she sees, you know, the work being put in, and that will either inspire to motivate. All we can ever really do is work on ourselves in the presence of others. Tend to our garden and then say, hey, look, you see my garden? You see how I mowed my lawn and yours is just like all over the place? Huh. You know, and then maybe that other person will be motivated to make an internal change on their own. And then before you know it, you're making that match point again. And then you know, you can live happily ever after. So it all has to do with making energetic connection, alignment. So what about these other limiting beliefs? So here's another limiting belief that I heard, and I'm just going to give you a couple examples. Again, this isn't directed towards anybody specifically. Hi, Teresa. Thanks for joining. Hashtag making a match point. Yeah, that's really what we're talking about, is aligning. Everything is just about alignment. Glass ceiling. Yep. Hi, Julia. Thanks for joining. So here's another limiting belief that was being thrown my way. And whenever this happens, you know, I tend to do a Facebook Live about it the next day. So here's this limiting belief that due to my circumstances, I must do such and such. So more specifically, because of this, I must do that. You know, because of my job, I can't, you know, live the life I want to live. That's a limiting belief. That's a belief that will ultimately create exactly what you're thinking. You know, it will create that belief, and either way, you're making it true. So because of this, I can't do this. So somehow there's a limiting anchor, you know, an anchor that's anchoring you down. That's just simply not true. That's not true. So what happens when we check in and we gain momentum and we become the creators of our universe, when we really, you know, take the driver's seat and become the masters of our reality, we realize that that's simply not the case. We're just not being creative enough. We need to expand our beliefs. We need to open to new ideas. So here's an example. When I was in Sedona, Arizona, I was at a coffee shop. I got there way before everybody else because I wake up at 3 a.m. I went down to the Starbucks and I was having coffee. And a guy walks in. He's a single father and he had 4 kids. And he sat all 4 kids around the table, gave them a little bit of food, each one, had them share a single iPad, and he homeschooled them right there in Starbucks for about 2 hours. I was drinking coffee for a little while. I switched to water, so I wasn't drinking coffee for the whole 2 hours. I was just like, wow, that's really interesting. And, so I started talking to him a little bit, and, we exchanged a little bit of information back and forth. It turns out he's homeschooling his children. They go hiking in the afternoon. They move there with absolutely no money. He was Native American. I could see it in how he had his hair and the tone of his skin and just in how he carried himself. He had this belief that I'm going to live the life that I want to live. Oh, he was a single father. Did I mention that? So he's a single father, and he had 4 kids. I didn't ask, where the mother was. I just met the guy in Starbucks. I didn't want to, dig deep. But there he is in Starbucks. Kids are, some of the kids are coloring. The other ones are passing around an iPad. And for 2 hours every day, they do their studies. The kids are getting through school. They're learning. So he tells me that, they have an apartment that they sleep in. They don't live there. I'm like, I think the same thing. That's cool. Like, tell me more about that. And he's like, well, I don't live in my apartment. Why do I need a big space? I live outdoors. I live on the trails. It's 70 to 90 degrees every day all year round. Like, I'm going to be outside and I'm teaching my kids, just by inspiring them what is possible, what can be done. And just seeing him set that example for his kids and not making any excuses for anything. He's aligning with his own beliefs and what he thinks is possible, what he believes is possible. So do you see how that works? So I was doing the same thing. I was working in a kitchen, and people were telling me, Ernest, you need to teach. Ernest, you need to teach. And I was like, yeah, but I have to run this restaurant, right? So I started volunteering at the old folks home, and I was teaching, and I felt really good about that. It's helping people, they're moving. And then, one of the residents tells me their story about falling, and they hear my voice in their head, and they see us doing our Tai Chi movements, and it helped her relax and get back into the chair. And then I had this aha moment. I need to be teaching, not serving barbecue, not running a restaurant. And so a lot of people probably saw that my attention changed. My attention went really towards the teaching, which was my New Year's resolution in the first place, was to share. That was my 2017 resolution. And as we're nearing an end of 2017, I feel like I did an okay job getting that ball rolling, getting that started. So I had this, desire to teach, to share my message so that I can get it out there and just be like, there it is. The message was out there for me to latch on to and to learn from. Now I'm just sharing that. I'm perpetuating that for the next person, and then they'll perpetuate it for the next person. But I'm working in a barbecue restaurant. So what do I do? What is my belief? So my limiting belief at that point was I have to work in this restaurant to help my Tai Chi teacher. I have to run his restaurant for him to help my Tai Chi teacher. And I can't do anything else. I don't have time to do anything else. I don't have the energy to do anything else. And I was like, wait a second. That's true if I keep telling myself that. That's a reality that I'm creating based on my belief system. And then I said, no, that's not the case. I can create an environment to where this restaurant doesn't need me anymore. And then within a month, I was already backing out of the restaurant, letting a new general manager take over. And then I was traveling about the country. Pilgrimage theory. I can't wait to talk about that. And that's what I was doing. I was exercising my pilgrimage theory. Well, that's over now. So now I'm back. I may do another pilgrimage again later, depending on, what how expansive things get for me. So here's a couple examples. You know, you had this father, and he's bringing his kids into the Starbucks, and he's homeschooling them, and he's, you know, being the shining example of what's possible for them. And they're not going to have as many limiting beliefs because they see that we can just make it happen. If we have the belief, then we can set the intention. If we set the intention, then we can focus on the step right in front of us to get us to where we want to be, because there's no limitations. We are the we are. We're the masters of our universe. And that's true. It's true for you. It's true for me. You are the you are, just as I am the I am. So I dropped some of my limiting beliefs and I evolved. I left the restaurant. I started teaching. You know, and it's true. I'm learning more as I'm teaching. And that's what they told me. They said, Ernest, you know, you're going to learn so much from teaching. It's a part of the process. As you teach, you also learn. And damn it, they're right. They're 100% right. I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm expanding and I'm evolving. And it's all because I checked my limited beliefs at the door. So here was a limited belief that I cannot dissolve psychological suffering. That we cannot dissolve psychological suffering in this lifetime. That we have to, at some point, endure chronic psychological suffering. Now, I'm not talking about suffering outside of immediate experience. If my dog dies, I'm going to have an immediate response to that stimuli, and I'm going to feel sad. But what I'm talking about is getting in our own way. You know, bringing down our own house. We're a powerhouse. We're not going to bring down our own house. So getting in our own way, limiting our own beliefs, creating a construct that's limited, that is encumbering, and that doesn't really serve us. So I busted that myth. You can dissolve psychological suffering, long-term psychological chronic suffering, anxiety, fear, jealousy. What are some emotions that? Anger. I still have flashes of irritation now and then. So I'm not Buddha. But I don't get angry. I don't have psychological suffering. I don't think about these things of the past. Sometimes I recapitulate with joy, you know, because it's benefiting me. It's serving me at times to think back and recapitulate on how far I've come. But I don't think thoughts that don't serve me. And now the perpetual stream of thinking, future and past, has just dissolved on its own. So if anybody tells you that this isn't possible, why not? Why is that limiting belief coming into my field of awareness? You know, we can transcend psychological suffering. We can achieve perfect health. We can connect and align to the vibration of love. And that's a state of being that feels like deep gratitude. And I was told at one point that you can't always be in a state of love. That's not true. Not in my reality, not according to my construct, not according to my belief system. I am love. And I'm connecting to that so often now that it's creating this expanse and this unfurling. And now almost every moment of mine feels like a memory happening now. It feels like a black and white movie that's still sharp, that's still relative, and that still has good special effects. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm just trying to describe, you know, what this metamorphosis feels like for me right now. And people said that this wasn't possible. That, Ernest, you can't be happy all the time. I can't? So even now when I experience contrast, when something is in my field of perception, I have what I call synthesis theory. So I still feel peace, even when there's something in front of me that I don't prefer, something that I don't feel good about. I can still find my baseline of inner peace and relaxation. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I'm going to take my wife to work so I can have the car because I need to get a haircut. So I got to get that done today. I hope you like those two stories, but those are a couple limiting beliefs, that we're bound to our circumstances, that, I can't do this because of my job. I can't do this because of my kids. I can't do this because of my marriage. Momentum. As we gain momentum, we gain new perspective. As we gain new perspective, we see new options, new opportunities. We see things that previously weren't there before. So I don't need to think right now, what is my future in 50 years? That will evolve on its own. I just find peace. I find joy. I connect to my number one theory, the now. The unified field theory of all spirituality. If you're a Christian, you're a better Christian now, in this moment. Being aware of your decisions and your choices in this moment. If you're a Mormon, being a better Mormon now, following your beliefs now, makes you a better Mormon. There is no wrong way. I don't tell anybody, how to create their construct. That would be tending to their garden, and that doesn't benefit me. So we can check these limited beliefs. We can check in, check in, check in. The more we check in, the more we create space. The more we create space, the more we can use tricks of attention and synthesis theory to expand the present moment and really connect to it. Really make love to this existence. And it's so hard for me to explain, but it's like a visceral connection. It's a deep connection to life itself, to existence itself, to the world around me, physically, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. It's like deep, deep connection. And it feels fantastic. It feels glorious because it's a connection to our higher self, our true self. So you could say it's a connection to God. A connection to Holy Spirit. I don't know. How many ways can we describe this connection? My last little remnants of working at the restaurant. A Dr. Pepper cup. So I have a class today. So at 1 p.m. I have mindfulness class. This class is free. You just enter the ID number at zoom.us/join and you're in a mindfulness class. And this is a part of transitioning fitness. I'm working on a lot of stuff. So I'm really excited about all of the expansion, all of the ideas, how I'm starting to step into my own teaching. What has worked for me? What have I seen work for other people? What do I really want to be a teacher of? Inner peace. I want to teach the methods, the techniques, the method of no method, because it's unique to each individual. But I want to teach different ways, show people different ways, so that they can choose what works for them. So we can start to find this relaxation, this balance in ourselves and in our environment. Because it feels really good. It feels really good to be balanced, to be connected. And I just want to share that. Okay, so I'll see you guys for class if you so choose. Again, it's at 1 o'clock and I'm Central Time. You just enter that code and you're in the class. And on Sunday, I have a webinar, $5 per person for this webinar, and I'm getting into attachment theory. So this is really, really important to understand about our construct. How tightly are we clinging? That will be directly proportional to the level of suffering. So I'm not teaching detachment. I'm just teaching how to loosen our grip a little bit, how to just soften it up. I can have a cup, but I don't have to attach and cling to it. I don't have to identify to it. And we can gauge our identification to something and how much we're clinging to something based on how it makes us feel when it's there, when it's taken away from us. When our cycle is broken, when our habit is broken, how does that make us feel? That's how we can gauge our level of attachment. Okay, so mindfulness class, teaching people how to check in, check in, check in, check in, because that's one of the basics of my underlining theory of now, of the infinite, ever-present, infinitely expanding and expansive present moment. The source of all power and all that is and everything that ever was and ever will be is now. Well, we need to check into that so that we can be conscious creators. Check in, check in, check in. And that's mindfulness. That's what mindfulness class is all about. Okay, so I'll see you guys tomorrow for Facebook Live, 6:30. I'm doing it every day. I actually think Saturday, however, I might need to make some changes because I'm taking my teacher to Chicago. So we're going to start working on his new school, and he's going to be doing a service for the University of Illinois that we're going to have to iron out some paperwork so that he can get his new business off the ground. So I'm helping my teacher with the new business, so I'll be doing that on Saturday. So I may have to cancel the class that I had scheduled on Saturday. I'll let you know. Okay, so I'll see you guys next time, and thanks for tuning in. Questions, comments, concerns, you can just send me a private message or an email. And yeah, I'll see you guys in class. Thanks for coming. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it.